This is the Pilot's News Briefing Podcast. I'm Frank Daniels. With me today is Matt Lamb from the Pilot's Newsroom, bringing us the latest news in Moore County. And you have brought together some of your reporting into a longer piece to kind of really get down to the bottom.
Yeah, I kind of flexed some things together and fleshed out some reporting. The More Innovative High School is set to open in August. And for everybody that's been following, I think the planning process kind of happened in reverse from what is typical when it comes to new school development. You had a legislative appropriation in the 2023 biennial budget for $25 million that kind of came out of nowhere. So you had State Senator Tom McInnes and Representative Neil Jackson both carrying water on opposite sides of the General Assembly. So suddenly there's this big carve out, and they want the stakeholders involved. So Sandhills Community College, the Moore County Schools District, to build an innovative high school. And they want it done fast. They kind of charged them with getting it open by the 25-26 school year. And as it is now, it's kind of set to happen. And so I've done a ton of reporting. I've written 10 or 12 stories, both from the perspective of Sandhills Community College and from the district, as they have both planned independently and collectively to get this new program on its feet. And then I kind of wrote the story around a meeting that happened at the end of February. It's the first time that all the stakeholders came together. Everybody kind of put their chips on the table. There were updates on the planning process. This is what the educational programming looks like. This is what the capital development looks like. And, this is what funding looks like right now. Since then, Sandhills Community College has gotten a advanced planning report from the LS3P architecture firm. And so they're trying to kind of figure out what the new buildings are going to look like. It all started as one building. We thought More Innovative High School, singular. But I think for Sandhills Community College, it was always what Sandy Stewart, the president over there, called an open question. He said, are we best served by building one building that houses all of the needs of this school? And keep in mind, it's intended to be a vocational school where students complete all their high school requirements in the first 2 years, and then they move on to vocational training on Sandhills campus. So he was asking, is it best to have this all in one building, or should we build two? One being a building to house those kids for the first 2 years for their high school requirements, and then move them on to another trade, vocational style lab building. But we want those buildings to have some kind of a symbiotic feeling. They're a collective. We don't want kids to lose, I guess, the feeling that they are a part of More Innovative High School. We don't want to just send them into the wind on the Sandhills campus and say, hey, you're on your own for your next, for your junior and senior and potentially your fifth year. And so, they've kind of worked out an alternate concept and a preferred concept of what those buildings are going to look like. We've got some numbers of what they're going to cost. Moving forward, it all looks like they're going to build the workforce development building first, so the vocational building, because right now, the early high school kids are going to be in Van Dusen Hall. They've carved out some space for them there. And considering that it's a small cohort model, so they're going to start with 70 kids. They got 111 applications for the upcoming school year. They're going to start with 70. At some point, they will build up to the maximum allowable occupancy, which is 100 per class, so 400 per school. But for now, the kids got space in Van Dusen. So if you go ahead and break ground on the workforce development building, kind of no matter what, you're always going to have a new cohort backfilling that 9th and 10th grade group, and you're going to push, the 11th and 12th graders and maybe the 5th years out into the vocational studies. So it makes sense. Still a ways out on breaking ground, but.
So let's kind of go through. You have your story broken into a few pieces that, as you say, kind of start with, as you said just a minute ago, started with that appropriation from the General Assembly during the biennial budget.
Yep.
And then the planning that has happened that kind of really was laid out in the most detail to date, as you had said it, I think, in your story, in that February meeting.
Yeah.
And then you talked about Ashley Ciccone,
Sure.
and I thought maybe you could just talk a little bit about her role moving forward and kind of how she's...
Sure. Right before the turn of the year, they decided to bring on Ashley Ciccone. She has previously been the principal at Pinehurst Elementary School, which for the last couple of years has been the only A-rated school in the Moore County Schools District. And, she's got 26 years of experience. She's done a ton. She's worked as a middle school teacher. She's been an instructional coach, assistant principal. So she's kind of ran the gamut. And, they pulled her in and she took the gig. Said she surprised herself. If you'd have told her that she was going to be a high school principal earlier in the year, she would have never believed it. But yeah, she, I think, did a lot of the legwork when it came to recruiting kids. So she went to every middle school. She talked to every middle school kid. She talked to every teacher and every administrator in the middle school kids. And she said, hey, these are the kids we're looking for. These are the kids that kind of fall through the cracks. So they're not kids that are failing. They're not kids that we're finding being super successful. But as we follow them post-graduation, these are the kids that they have lower GPAs, but they do graduate. They aren't getting the advanced skills or the advanced training, and they're not going to Sand Hills Community College on the backside of high school. So they're taking, the minimum wage jobs, but they're kids that if they got some additional support, and they got some guidance and that small cohort feeling, these are the kids that would stand to benefit most from advanced certificates and get them into some of these new workforce programs. So they go out, they make more money, off the rip. They have certificates, they have additional degrees, potentially associate's degrees. And, some of them naturally, the school's so different, right? So they're going to offer all honors level courses because you have to, with the foresight that you have to have when you develop a program like this, you got to imagine that some of these kids aren't going to want to stay here. They're going to want to bounce back to a comprehensive high school, or they're going to make a decision that they don't want to go straight into the workforce, that maybe they want to go to a 4-year university. So if you don't offer honors level courses, you hamstring these kids. And that's not what they want to do, but they recognize that, you're going to lose some.
And then that second, portion of the education is really geared around a specific number, like a small number of specific, what do they call them, pathways or vocations?
Yeah, they looked at a couple of clusters, like career clusters. And it's STEM stuff. It's advanced manufacturing. It's HVAC stuff. I think when Senator McGinnis looked to push this through the legislature, he was looking at a couple of examples of industry that are moving to the area. And I think for the most part, he looked at VinFast, which is moving into Moncure. That project has had some delays, and the construction timeline's kind of been stretched out. But Wolfspeed, the Durham manufacturing company, they refine silicon carbide crystals into wafers for electric vehicles. They got a $5 million semiconductor facility coming to Siler City, and I mean, that should be open.
It is open
anytime.
Actually, and
yeah.
because I just put a story in, and I made note that one has 1,800 jobs,
right,
potentially,
sure,
in the future. So, and then you also put the number of jobs in for Toyota. Yeah,
you're looking at 5,000 in Liberty, building hybrid and electric vehicle batteries. So I mean, that's, 7,000 jobs plus without the VinFast. Yeah. It could be more than that. And I think he and Representative Jackson thought, we have these new manufacturing opportunities coming close to Moore County. Let's make sure that Moore County kids have the skills to fill those positions. I think that was the nexus of the whole thing. Whether it happened in reverse or appropriately or not, I think that was what this was all predicated on. And I think I saw that he mentioned biotech as well, which, our state is just growing a ton, those manufacturers and other industries. So it makes sense. It's a huge, right. It makes sense that we have something.
And then I thought we're pretty much through your story, but you did also talk about some of the other county organization or some of the other county boards that questioned some of it a little bit.
Yeah, there was some frustration. There was some concerns that there was planning done in the dark, that not all the stakeholders were brought to the table from the onset. And yeah, like I said, it kind of happened counterintuitively. It wasn't a district or a community college saying we have these needs and then going to your legislative delegation and seeing what you could get in terms of a carve out. It started with a carve out and then, hey, build a program based on this carve out. So yeah, like school board member David Hensley the whole time expressed frustration, and it was never that I don't like the idea of the program. It was I just don't like this planning process. I think we've kept the school board kind of in the dark. I think we've kept the county board of commissioners in the dark. He said, I know at some point the Sand Hills Community College Board of Trustees didn't really know what was going on. So he just wanted more transparency throughout the development process. Same thing with Vice Chair Nick Paserno at the County Board of Commissioners. He said, hey, like I love the idea, but we have no idea what's going on. You know, they had a meeting in January, and he said, I don't know who's going to pay for the rest of this. You guys haven't asked me. We don't really know what the program looks like. And then when it was explained to him, he said, yeah, I love the idea. I just think that, you know, we should have been brought into the fold earlier. And so that's the argument that's been made pretty frequently.
And being that he was the chair of the Board of Commissioners
when it kicked off,
absolutely. I think he has that's a valid argument
it is.
For any community leader to make. So that being said, what kind of are the potential options to make up that budget shortfall, if you want to call it that?
Yeah. I expect that at some point there will be another ask of the General Assembly. You got to keep in mind, though, that they're contending with Hurricane Helene. So there is not as much funding available, but I think there will be an ask. At the same time, the Sand Hills Foundation, the community college's foundation, is going to do a capital campaign. And then you could, lean on the commissioners and see if you could get a carve out from them. I don't know how well that'll go. Maybe at some point they'll be willing to help. You got to think that they're considering that they're going to have to build a new elementary school in the near future. So there's some ways forward. I think maybe they've got enough money to build that initial building. They'll need some infrastructure funding, for roads and parking lots and stuff. But yeah, it's going to happen no matter what. The kids are the red wolves of the more innovative high school, and they are going to start in August.
And we will, I'm sure, learn more about how they made up that funding difference and more about the curriculum and the all the potentially great things that can come out of this sort of effort that is, one thing I don't want to miss out, because this is a kind of second run at the idea.
The innovative school in Moore County?
And we don't need to say much about it because we're here now. It's almost done, but this is something that the county tried to do, or the schools tried to do. Yeah. What, 10 years ago was it? 12 years ago? Something like that.
2013 or so.
So...
yeah, there was the Advanced Career Center.
Yeah, Advanced Career Center.
Similar, but different. And it, it had support, and then it didn't get legs because the district needed elementary schools.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and like you say, Carthage was not rebuilt in that original push. You didn't say Carthage, but that you said an elementary school, but
yeah. We had McDeeds Creek, Southern Pines, Pinehurst, and Aberdeen Elementary that all came post Advanced Career Center.
Right. That kind of put the hold on it.
Yeah.
And now the county is probably going to need, as you say, to build Carthage Elementary. Right. So we'll see what happens. In August, things are gonna, that's gonna happen. Yeah. Red Wolves, you said, that's the mascot, and so I think it's great for the kids that are gonna get the opportunity, and we'll see how it goes as time goes on. And thank you for bringing it in here and doing that work to bring us that information. And I got to give a shout out to Ron Anzavina. He sent me an email a while back expressing some feedback and that he appreciated what we do here. So I'm sure Ron thanks you as well, and I thank Ron. Thank you for reaching out. And,
thanks, Ron.
Sorry, it's been a little bit irregular this past week, but we'll get back to it. And that's the latest news in Moore County. But if you have more questions for Matt after you read his story, it's a great story. It will be in Sunday's paper, and you can email him, mlam@thepilot.com. If you have more questions for me or feedback like Ron sent, you can email me to frank@thepilot.com, and we will be back another time.
Cool. Have a good weekend, Frank.
Thanks, you too.